My name is Margot King, and this presentation will share with you my 1 hour workshop delivered and prepared for ITEC 7460. Developing Interactive Choice Boards, Differentiation at Your Students' Fingertips. My participants were able to access the presentation and handouts on my blog after the workshop was delivered and there was time for them to actually plan. Once they visited my blog, they were able to not only see the presentation again if they needed to, but they had access to the resources, the handouts that were available to them that they could edit for their subject matter. So all the resources were there at the blog. I'll go back to the presentation. What I did with the participants first was kind of lay the foundation for choice, how you determine what choices will look like for your students. We talked about using exit tickets, quizzes, pre-tests, not typically, because you're going to have some direct instruction going on, and then that may be followed by a quiz. And that quiz will determine, okay, do they have it? And then that helps lay the foundation of what you'll do next with them in terms of choice. I share with them a sample of an ecology choice board I created for my students for the large unit of study in ecology. And that choice board was organized in a simple table. Everything that you see is hyperlinked, and there are shapes that indicate the kind of choices that students would be able to utilize based on their performance on that assessment that was used to guide them. The triangles, those are the foundation concepts that all students have to review. So the choice board has triangles on it. Those triangles meant everybody does these. The contract that I'm going to share with you next is what will guide students in their work. And so if you look at the contract, this is a way of managing student choice. The contract tells them after completing all triangle lessons and activities, I will complete the following 3 lesson activities in my assigned area. I'll choose an alternate activity in my assigned area and a bonus one from any area. So what they would see when they receive this contract from me is they see these shapes indicated where they scored. So let's say my star students, they actually performed below the level that they should have in moving on to the next concept. So they needed some remediation in the concept. My square students, they performed on level and needed a little bit of remediation, and then they can move on. And then my circle students, they maybe got it. They understood it. They maybe scored hundreds on the first quiz. So they were ready to look at an application of some of these concepts. So what I did was, depending on where they scored, I may have assigned my lower level students in performance 3-star activities. Or if I felt like they were capable of doing more, maybe 2 stars and 1 square, just so that they can move into some more advanced work and feel a little bit more like they were challenged more, maybe. And then my circle students, they may have they have a 3 in that area. And then my square students who are performing on level, they may have had a 2 there or a 3 there, just depending on what I thought they were ready for based on their quiz. So the contract really helps lay out the plan for how they make their choices. This is the activity sheet that accompanied the triangle activities that all students had to complete. Anytime I do things on the computer with my students, I try to come up with some accountability piece, a note-taking guide, some type of a quiz, or something that they're going to fill in to keep them on track as they work, so that even though it's an interactive game, they play, but they actually pull something from that play experience. And then I share with the participants an interactive set of sites, interactives for all subjects. Because what they learned in just my introduction to this process of building this differentiated choice board is that planning takes a while. They're going to have to really do some planning. Once they've kind of scoped out where they want to go with their students, the planning piece is big. So I organized web resources that were tied to the subject areas that they teach, so that if they had a one-stop shop for kind of finding things that would match the content that they were delivering in for their choice board. So that's interactive. It's also available on the blog so that they can use it and check out all of the sites. A couple of example sites I share with them in the workshop so they can actually see that may be used, what may be used for a language arts student or maybe used for a science student. And this particular link shows 7 through 12 interactives, but this site, the Utah interactive site, also has a 3 through 6 set of interactives. So if you have a student that's performing below the 7th grade level and there's content that matches in the 6th grade level, then you can actually place them there and have them work their way up with interactives that are more challenging. And then I asked them to kind of, before they started their time of work and planning their own choice board, I asked them to consider some questions like, what are the performance objectives for the unit you're studying? What should the students do who do not perform well on the first important assessment that's planned? How do I manage that? What strategies are in place to help them improve this skill before we move to the next set of skills that they need to learn in the next major assessment? Well, this is a strategy. The choice board is a strategy. And what do I do for students who perform or meet or exceed the objective while others need the remediation? Well, this basically sets up a nice flipped classroom for you. You can have students working on the choice boards. You can have students who need a little bit more help getting some direct instruction in some small groups, and then you can move them into the interactive. So this set of choice boards actually creates some real flexible learning opportunities for you in your classroom. And then I share with them some tips for building the differentiated activity because you got to think about functionality of interactive websites. So while planning, check the interactive site's navigation and functionality. You might want to provide some tips for your students. Bookmark the sites you like so you can get back to them easily. Copy and paste your hyperlinks to the template provided or in whatever manner you would like to make them available on your blog, website, or learning management system. Plan a short post-assessment or activity sheet or reflection assignment or checklist to accompany interactive resources for learning accountability. You want to make sure that students are on task and focus on learning, even though it may look like they're playing. Check the hyperlinks a few days before you implement the lesson to be sure they work, and have a backup plan or alternative site ready in the event that the website is down or not functioning properly. When we finish with the presentation, I allowed the participants some time to work and ask questions. And then when our hour was up, I asked that they go to the link on my blog to complete the differentiation evaluation, the workshop evaluation. When they finished, the results looked like this. Basically, of the 10 participants I had who shared their thoughts, the questions were, how likely are you to use the ideas shared in the workshop? Did the content shared meet your expectations? If yes, tell me how you envision using this strategy in your classroom. How do you see it working and yourself working and completing it? If you answered no, what did you expect that you didn't see? What level of support will you need to implement this strategy? And which of the following is going to be your greatest, have the greatest impact on whether or not you can actually pull this thing off? So if you look at the results, 70% said they're very likely to use a strategy, 20% somewhat likely, and 10% say that they're not likely to use it. And I looked back at some of the results, and there was one participant who felt like that the interactive sites that I shared were maybe too hard for her student, and she was concerned that she wouldn't be able to find resources that matched what her students were able to do. But I told her we keep looking because there's so much out there. Did the content shared meet your expectations of what you would be taught? And 100% of participants said yes. If you answer yes to the question, how do you envision using this strategy? What I think stood out for me most is the respondent who said, I would use a strategy to differentiate the content of the standards. This is a great engaging strategy for students on all levels. They'll be engaged and actively participate with independence without drawing attention to the instructional level. I love that, because when everybody's doing their own thing, especially with interactive sites, you're not really worried about your neighbor. everything that I tried to house on those resource pages represent things that are fun and engaging. So it should not draw you away from what you're doing, to be concerned about what somebody else is doing, because differentiation sometimes makes students uncomfortable. So you want that different to not make the students uncomfortable, but really engage them. And interactive websites have that ability. And then what level of support will you need to implement this differentiation strategy? 40% of the participants said they would need minimal support, 60% said they would need moderate support, and nobody needed major support. And in talking to them, the support really came in the area of finding resources. And so 90% say that the greatest impact they would face on in implementing this strategy would be planning time. 90% of the participants said that planning time would be a challenge for them. Available resources, 30%, comfort with technology, 20%, and then 10% seeing the value in this particular strategy's use. And that is all for developing interactive choice boards. Thank you for listening.